Academy program at the University of Calgary. And the purpose of this evening is just to give you a little bit of information about what this program is about, and perhaps more importantly, and most importantly, for you to get to know other members of the university community. And I'm really grateful that I have three students who are joining me today. We are all in different places, which is really brilliant that we can come here today. However, I'm in Calgary, and of course, I'm close to the University of Calgary campus. And so before getting started, I always think it's an opportunity for us to acknowledge where we are. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the fact that we're on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. So for those of you who are not in Calgary, I hope to see you soon, but I'm so grateful to be here today with you. So before getting started, I introduced myself, but I have different individuals here with me tonight. So I just wanted to give an opportunity for these individuals to introduce themselves, share a little bit about the faculty they're affiliated with, and perhaps an extracurricular engagement they're in, just to kind of get you thinking of something that you may want to connect with as you progress through your undergrad career. So how about we start in the order of the pictures, just to make it easy, so there's no online fighting. So go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Leah and I'm a fourth year student in the Cummings School of Medicine in health sciences. My major is in health and society, so that's quite the mouthful. And I have a minor in psychology, so there, you know everything I do now. And an extracurricular I really enjoy coaching, public speaking, and debate, and creating programs for youth across Alberta.
My name is Graham. I'm doing a double degree in biomedical science and economics with the Faculty of Medicine and the Faculty of Arts. And extracurricularly, I enjoy volunteering with a club on campus called We Swim that provides swim experiences to children with disabilities.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara, and I am a fourth year social work student with the Faculty of Social Work. And I'm actually located in the Edmonton campus because the Faculty of Social Work is in Edmonton, Calgary, and Lethbridge as well. And something that I do extracurricularly is I work with a student group that sponsors refugees. And I do that through the U of A, but there's also a similar branch at the U of C as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Graham, Leah, and Kara. And then I just want to acknowledge Stephanie, who's turned her video off. Stephanie is the Scholars, oh, there's Stephanie, is the Scholars Academy Program Assistant who assisted with all the logistics of all of this. So I don't want to say thank you too far in advance, but I will, of course, acknowledge that right now, Stephanie, so thank you. So one of the things that you probably would have noticed is that Scholars Academy students not only are progressing through their academics, but they're also involved in a myriad of different extracurricular involvements. And that's something that we really encourage, and to try to create an understanding with them of how they're able to manage that. As I'm sure you're aware, one of the best things that you can do as an undergraduate student, whether it's at the University of Calgary or elsewhere, is to build yourself professionally. And that means not only intellectually in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. How can you give back to your community? How can you be an entrepreneur in what you do? And how can you engage yourself in different elements outside of that classroom? And so if that's something that you're thinking about, we're going to address it a little bit later on. So now that you know who we are, I think it'd be silly not to get to know you. So if I could just ask Stephanie to launch a poll. We want to know who's in the audience tonight. A very challenging question. So won't give you too much time, hopefully, but who are you and who do we have in our audience? Are you a student? Are you a teacher? Are you a guardian? Just trying to get a sense of who we are. And I'll just give you a moment for that. We're at 60% of people who have answered, and then we're going to move on. Just give you another moment, another 5 seconds or so. Again, no right or wrong answer. Maybe you're a student who wants to be a teacher, who knows? Okay, so who do we have this evening? We have, looks like we're mostly students. We have a couple of guardians, so thank you for joining us. So like I said, I haven't said this yet, but really the whole idea is for us to get a sense of who you are and just to engage our language and some of the content appropriate to this context. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so in true fashion form, to get things started before we go into what Scholars Academy is about, one of the things that we're curious about, which will help us address how this program may be helpful for you, are what are the challenges you foresee as you enter university? And this can be in the context of the University of Calgary. Perhaps you're not quite sure yet whether or not this is the institution for you. So it can be any institution, but what challenges do you foresee? It can be things that are social, things that are academic, nothing's off the playing field. And how we're going to engage in this activity is I'm going to ask you to go to Mentimeter. It's a free resource online, and use the code 8401713. And if you type in that code, we're going to see some of the answers. So I'm going to give you a moment just to write this information, and then we're going to pull it up. So what challenges do you foresee as you enter university? The other thing that I should note is that when you engage in this exercise, we're not going to see who you are. So if you're worried about spelling, grammar, something I would be worried about personally, or whether or not we're going to call you out, please rest assured that's not the purpose of this activity. It's just to get the conversation going, to get you in the mindset of thinking about how this program, the Scholars Academy, can engage you and help you as you enter your first year of university. I'm going to give you a moment for that, and then we're going to move on. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So it's one person's answered the application process. So I'm not going to share the slide in too much detail just because there's one response, but I do want to say there's good news to that. We have an individual here from the admissions team who's going to share with you the process, who's the guru of that information. So I won't say more about that, but rest assured that you're going to get the questions that you have answered this evening or to the best of their capacity. So a little bit about why you're here today. And the role of the Scholars Academy. So the Scholars Academy began in 2011, and the purpose of it was to create an opportunity for high potential students to be engaged, be supported, be mentored, and be challenged as they progress through their undergrad. And so academically high potential students or high achieving students are individuals who have a strong grade point average or who excel had excelled very much in high school, and those people who also are involved in many different things outside the academic environment. So as the three of students have already mentioned, they're involved in many different extracurriculars, and that's something that we certainly support in the program. So who we are, it's a small cohort, and one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being a cohort of individuals from many different backgrounds and many different faculties. So we believe that the best collaboration are from individuals amongst different areas, different faculties, different departments. And so we pride ourselves on having people from kinesiology and social work and health science. And so if you're not sure whether or not what you're going to would be included in our program, we're hopefully able to show that we actually include many different people from different faculties to collaborate in that process. What are the benefits of joining the Scholars Academy? I just posted some of these here, but you'll have an opportunity to check out our website in more detail. But really it's based on 3 pillars. The first one being to support, the second one to be challenged, and the third one to be the connection. And so when we say support, if you're in Scholars Academy, you receive one-on-one advising from individuals such as myself on your long-term goals. And so what we've often found is many high achieving students, such as you on this call today, have longer term goals beyond the undergrad. So some of you may be thinking about medical school or law school, or heck, just to get a job right after you finish undergrad. And the reality is nowadays is that you can start to be really thoughtful about your portfolio, your process, in order to make yourself the most competitive and marketable. So having one-on-one discussions is always helpful. There's also access to things like a private lounge. When we have the opportunity, there is a retreat that we typically go on to in Banff. It's a fully paid weekend retreat where we engage in professional development opportunities. And there's other things like engaging in a panel of speaker series. We have thoughtful discussions where we present challenging topics that we can collaborate and discuss on. And we also have service learning projects where you're partnered with different not-for-profits to help resolve specific issues faced by them. So the whole idea of Scholars Academy is not to burden you. To be a member of the program, you're typically highly involved on campus and off campus, but it's to give you different opportunities for you to start thinking outside the box. It's to put you sometimes outside of your comfort zone and more into your growth and learning zone. It's to connect you with different community members who are equally passionate and driven in what they're doing, and to really get you started to think outside the box. So it's certainly not supposed to be a burden. It's more supposed to be an opportunity for you to engage in the elements that you think are important to you. I just wonder if I can pass it on to my three co-presenters with me tonight. Maybe if you could share one thing that resonates with you within the programming with Scholars Academy. So my first person on my screen is Kara. So why don't we start with Kara?
Okay. I think the first thing that really resonated with me with Scholars Academy was really actually my very first interaction was getting to have that one-on-one discussion with Jessica, and that really helped open my eyes to different career paths. And actually, I'm currently applying to different grad schools, which I had not considered before going to Scholars Academy, because I had just considered the standard trajectories in my field and from other classmates that I knew. So it was really, really helpful to have someone who can really broaden your perspective and give ideas and advice about things that are going beyond what you would see in particular paths around from people around you.
Perfect. I'm gonna have Leah, who's next on my screen.
Okay, so I'd say there's many benefits and many amazing things that drew me to Scholars Academy, but one of them is really that mentorship piece. I really think that this program has a unique mentorship setup because the way that Jessica creates the program is that we are paired up with mentors who have very different career paths to the ones that we're following. And that's really, it creates lots of richness and very interesting discussions because these individuals can, challenge your viewpoints and give you so many ideas, and kind of what Kara was mentioning about new career trajectories and opportunities that you probably wouldn't have thought about yourself. So that's really valuable to me.
All right, and I guess that leaves me. So I'll hop in on the note of the Scholars Lounge. Obviously, this isn't available in current state of the world, but previously that was absolutely where I spent my most time on campus. It serves as a great central hub for you to be able to meet and interact with a wide variety of people, while also providing you a place where you can sit down, be able to prepare food. You have a nice space to study, to run events for clubs that you may become a part of, and be able to sort of take some time to relax and not have to deal with hunting around the libraries to find spots. It's nice to be able to have that reassurance that there's a space there dedicated to you.
So thank you, Kara, Leah, and Graham. And I think what's unique is that you all capture different elements of the programming, whether or not it's the one-on-one advising, the mentorship, or the actual Scholars Lounge. Graham, you'll be keen to know that they're actually renovating our lounge as we speak. So when we're hopefully together in person again, in flesh and blood, there will be a lounge for us to connect with. And as hopefully you've been able to identify, is that the whole idea of the program is to get to know you one-on-one and to figure out where can we help building your portfolio? What is it that you need today, tomorrow, and next year for you to be comfortable and competitive in whatever you want to do? And so it's not punitive. Let's say you join the program and you don't do so well one year. It's not as though we kick you out. This is not a punitive program. This is a supportive program, a supportive community in order for you to be engaged and active members of the environment. Stephanie, if you just want to share a little bit of information about how you actually apply to Scholars Academy, and then we'll move on to our panel discussion.
Sure, yeah. So Scholars Academy is an online application, and what that entails is putting together an application package that mimics a graduate school sort of application that you would go through in the future. So even regardless of the result of your Scholars Academy result, it really is a good professional opportunity. So that includes creating a personal statement, an academic CV, your unofficial transcripts from the University of Calgary, and we recommend you have at least one semester on that unofficial transcript as well, and 2 references to include in your application. So we review that, and once we review the applications, we shortlist students that we would like to meet in an interview, and from the interview process, we shortlist students that we would accept into Scholars Academy. So there are also 2 deadlines for students to apply to Scholars Academy. The first one is in January. That is our advanced application deadline, and that is for students who are in their second year and above and in their undergraduate degree. And we have the traditional deadline, which is normally in March, and that includes everyone who would like to join, including first year students who are wrapping up their first year. Thank you, Jessica.
No, thank you. And I know that's a lot of information, and certainly this presentation will be posted will be posted because it's recorded. But one of the things I just want to emphasize is that it may seem like a lot of information, however, that we ask you to submit, but as Stephanie rightfully noted, it's all preparation for something grander than undergrad, which is typically graduate school. And perhaps more importantly is that you are always offered or invited to come for feedback. So if you say to yourself, I have no idea how to write a personal statement, well, you're going to receive an invitation from me to actually get feedback on it. Or you're not quite sure how to identify references. Well, let's have a conversation about that. So everything about this experience is supposed to be formative. It's supposed to be inclusive and accessible. But what we're trying to do is prepare you to those next steps. And rightfully, even with the interview phase, so people are invited for an interview, and we also provide feedback on interviews. So for any of you who are thinking about things like medical school, which have such a unique medical interview process, all these sorts of developmental opportunities can only help you and serve you well as you progress through your undergrad. So everything I just want to emphasize, it's not supposed to be a burden. It's supposed to be helpful for you in your professional development and thinking about your long-term goals. And this is just a milestone we're going to get there. I just want to take a pause. I know we're a smaller group tonight, so I wonder if people have any questions, and you can ask questions either by unmuting yourself or by writing something in chat. So I'm just going to give us a little bit of a pregnant pause and see if anyone has any questions. And then we have a series of additional panel questions to think more about the university experience. So just going to give it a moment, mute myself so people feel like they have an opportunity to speak, and then we're going to move on.
Hi there. I was having a little bit like technology problems, so like I just kept on joining in and disconnecting. In my like last year of like high school, I was like thinking of like applying at the University of Calgary. I was wondering if you'd like run me through this again, because I'm kind of like confused because I joined and then left. I was like a little bit confused on what's happening right now. Or also run me through like the experience as well too.
So you're a true incoming for a first year student, technological issues. We all experience that. So welcome to the university environment. So yeah, we get it. So just so we're clear, this is separate from the university application. Once you're in or you're accepted to the University of Calgary, this would be a program that you would apply to once you're in your first year. So it's a totally separate program.
Oh, I'm sure that I know that. I'm just like explaining the program itself.
Okay, so we got the first part, check. So the second part is, got it, is it's a program to help in your professional development. And so it's a competitive program. So the people who get in are like-minded, high-achieving students. So those who are at the top of their class and also involved in different extracurriculars. And we give you a series of professional development opportunities to help you in whatever your career trajectory is. So that can be identifying awards and scholarships you should apply for, different presentations you should visit. We have awards that you can actually win to go and present or attend different conferences. We have retreats that we invite you to attend. So again, everything that we do is supposed to add to your portfolio present you opportunities, give you connections, help you network to help you in that next stage after your undergrad.
And everybody in this chat is in that program, right?
Sorry?
Everybody in this chat is in that program, right?
So the three, so Kara, Leah, and Graham, what a wave. Those are 3 students who are in the program. There, Graham, there you go. Yeah. I wouldn't be in that program. I'm not high achieving enough. So in my undergrad. Does that answer some of your questions?
That's everything I have, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So let's move on. It looks like we've covered it. So I thought we could take this opportunity for the next maybe 10, 12 minutes or so before passing the stage on for our admissions team to share a little with you more about the admissions process, to have more about a discussion about workload and transitioning from high school to university. And so one of the unique things that I just tried to emphasize with Scholars Academy are these are the highest achieving students at the University of Calgary. These are the ones who, I know this may be uncomfortable for Kara, Leah, and Graham, but these are the students who typically win the big monetary awards and who typically are able to transition to graduate and professional school right away. And so I thought this would be a really good audience to give you an idea of what it's like to be a university student, and perhaps even some tips or suggestions that may resonate with you regardless if you attend U of C or not. I really think that I hope that we are able to provide you with information that you can take beyond this call tonight. Okay, so let me get started. So I guess a common question, so we have, I have 4 questions just to give you a sense of what we're gonna go through. And my first question is how do you adjust to the university workload? That's a really common question we get from high school students. And I thought I could just give my 3 co-facilitators an opportunity to address it. And like I said, perhaps you'll learn something that you can take along the way. So how do you adjust to the university workload? And maybe we'll start with Leah this time.
Great. So as you may have heard, it is true that university is generally more work than high school, but it's totally manageable and it's very exciting and stimulating work. So everything that you do, or most the things that you do, will be very rewarding. But in order to not get overwhelmed, it's really important to organize your work in a way that makes sense for you. And so it can take a few tries to get it right. You may need to try different strategies, but what's great is at the U of C, they have lots of different programs that can help you understand how you learn best and how to organize your work. So if you're in Scholars Academy, Jessica and Stephanie put together amazing workshops to help us. So there's always one-on-one advising with Jessica. And if you're not in Scholars Academy, or even if you are, there's always other places to look. So the U of C has a Student Success Center, and I've participated in some of their workshops, and they've always been super interesting, and I've learned a lot. And it's definitely helped me reconsider how I organize my time and how I manage my workload to be as successful as I can.
Perfect. How about Graham?
I would strongly echo Leah's sentiments there, and I guess want to emphasize how much it feels like more a challenge of time management. It's really stuff that you can handle. If you came out of high school and you did well, it's manageable content. It's stuff that you can definitely grasp and understand. And it becomes much more of a balancing act now that it's on you to sort of set your own schedule much more. You have a great deal more independence about how you go about some of these things. And so that'd be my recommendation for handling that shift in workload, is to double down and look at how you're spending your time and where you're spending it, how to try and optimize that to ease the transition.
And I think just to add on, outside of the actual managing of the workload, the big thing is you're going to put a lot of pressure on yourself, and it's really important to be addressing that workload and to be working hard and to be trying your best. But you also need to take a breath, make sure you're taking care of your own well-being and your own mental health, and still spending time doing things that you love and spending time with people you love. Because if all you're doing is work, and that's all you're focusing on, that's not going to be sustainable in the long run. So you want to be able to be successful and to work really hard, but to be able to keep doing that. And to do that, you need to make sure that you're doing things that you love at the same time, which is where trying to manage and balance your time comes in.
Perfect. So a second question that we often get is what study strategies are different from high school to university? So how do you study differently from high school to university? So why don't we start off with Graham this time?
All right. On this note, I would say that in high school, I had less iteration to my notes when I was trying to do my reviewing. So it would be more of a process of, okay, I've written out my notes or typed out my notes or whatever I did for that class in high school. And I would just go and be reading through those as a means of studying. In university, I found that it helped to go back and iterate on those notes, to look at them again, rewrite them and refine them and condense them so that when I was trying to run through it in my studying, I'd be able to get through more content more quickly, more times to help better prepare me for my university exams.
Perfect. And I see a great note. So maybe we can address that as well, is how has that changed since we moved to the online learning environment? So yes, that's a very good question. So maybe Kara, do you want to tackle that? And then we'll do Leah. And then Graham, we can loop back to you if you have some insight into the online learning.
Sounds good. And Nada, that was a really good question. So there's a lot of differences when you're switching from in-person to online. And I think a big one that myself and definitely I've found from other students too, is that when you don't necessarily have a professor reminding you of when things come, deadlines can come like that. Or you might think, oh, all the assignments are written in this syllabus here, and then I'll remember it. But there's like 5 different places that they might want assignments and want you to put little different discussion posts and different tests. So just be aware of that, because no matter how nice professors try to be, things get lost and it can get really distracting. So it's really important that you set up a list of your assignments and have that somewhere where you actually know, when are my exams, when are my papers, when are those little tiny things that are just 5% of your grade that you could easily forget about? Because when it's online, that's definitely something that can get lost. So with that, it's really important that you're managing your own time, because you're not going to have somebody who's necessarily reminding you, especially when classes aren't always live. The other thing that I think when you're going online is try, and I don't always do this, but try to keep like a normal schedule as if you were actually going to school in terms of your sleep and like actually being alive during the day so that you can attend your classes and spend that daytime studying, but then give yourself breaks and give yourself time to say, hey, I'm done. That was my work time. Now I'm actually gonna like be at home and relax, because when you don't, it can get really stressful and it can get really hard to when those lines blur.
That's perfect. And Leah, maybe you can also mention how courses are followed online, the online platform, Zoom, D2L, like how you actually submit things.
Okay, so I'm going to answer the first question, which is the high school one first, if I remember everything. So to me in high school, I feel like things were easier to keep track of. So in the next 2 weeks, I knew I had 1 quiz and 1 essay to submit, and that was it. Whereas in university, you have 5 different courses or sometimes 4 going on at the same time, and you have lots of deadlines, and the list of things that you could be doing could be infinite, which sounds really scary, but it doesn't have to be, because if you know how to prioritize, you can rank items in terms of importance, and there's some things that you may never get to because they're extra readings or bonus points, and that's okay if you can't get everything done. So yeah, I would say a really important part of university learning is having like a good prioritization system to get the work done efficiently and the work that needs to get done. In terms of the next question, which was moving online, I would say similar to what Kara was saying is keeping a schedule, and that can be very difficult. But I would say an advantage to moving online that we didn't really have when we were on campus is that most of us have to travel to campus because not all of us live on residence. And so that time, you know, it could eat up a lot of good study time. And so one of the benefits, I think, of online learning is that you can really take the bits of the day where you learn best. So for me, it's early morning. Instead of being in transit, I can get my work done in the morning very early. So that'd be a benefit. In terms of how we follow classes, there's two different models, if that's what you meant, Jessica. I hope I'm answering the question. So there's synchronous and asynchronous courses. Synchronous means that they happen at a set time like they would at normal universities. So 11 to 12, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have to go to online school and sit in your lecture and take notes and be a student. Or there's asynchronous classes, which are most of mine this semester, which means the professor will post the week's lectures in the week before, and it's up to you when you want to complete them. So you can work ahead as much as you want, or you can fall behind if you want to as well, a bit more dangerous. But yeah, so it's definitely a very flexible schedule online, which brings a lot of benefits, surprisingly.
Awesome. And there was another question in the chat that I think all three of you answered or touched upon. So the question is it true that most professors are more strict than high school teachers, or would you say that's a myth?
I think, oh, sorry. Graham, you can go.
Yeah, sorry to be bumpy out there. I'd say it's a myth. I don't know that there's any universal relationship that holds there about university profs being more or less strict. But by and large, I think the important part to remember is that the university prof, especially in first year, isn't dealing with, you know, the 30 students in your class. They're dealing with the 300. And so you're not going to have them be as, we'll say, like, attentive to you and what might be going on in your life. And so I don't know if it manifests as strictness necessarily, as opposed to maybe being a bit more impartial to it would be how I put that. But then I would also emphasize that dynamic changes as you progress through university. You move away from those 300-person classes. I'm in a class right now that has 8 people in it, and I'm on like a first name basis with the professor. So it's highly varied in that sense.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with Graham that there's differences. I started in sciences actually at a different university, and then I switched to social work at the U of C. And in social work in my 3rd and 4th year, we have 25 students in our whole thing. So everybody in social work's on a first name basis with everybody. I wouldn't call anybody doctor, whoever. So it's very casual and very friendly. And I'll ask for rarely have to ask for an extension. Sometimes they just give you an extension. But when I do, they give me a longer extension than I asked for. But that was not my whole university experience. That's very nice now. I think for me, especially, yeah, when you're in those larger classes, what's important is the teachers, I think, try to make themselves more available in specific ways compared to high school. Because for me, I think teachers are a lot better at answering emails and things like that and being responsive. And during office hours, they can be really helpful, but they're not necessarily going to spend like 30 minutes with just you trying to puzzle something through. So that's why if you're needing some more time and you're not getting a concept, because that can happen to anybody, it's important to look at like different study groups and like student services and things like that, because the teacher might not be that person for you. The other thing is oftentimes there might be TAs and labs and things like that, and sometimes they can provide some extra help when your professor can't. But those are great things to look at, are those different resources. The other thing I'll say is in terms of extensions, a lot of times teachers have a sense of, okay, this person has been a really good student and they've been attending all my classes, and you know what, something came up and they need some more time. Sure, I'll give them an extension. But they can also tell when you've just made something up, and they might not give you as much flexibility, or when you're asking for an extension just because you can't manage your own time, that they might not give that. So it's not just, you shouldn't expect that they're just going to be kind and be lenient. And I think extensions are something that can happen a lot more when you're taking arts-based assignment-based courses. If you're thinking about exams, there's a rare instance when you're not going to have to do the exam on the day. Like, okay, you're throwing up, okay, somebody died yesterday, you'll get out of it. But a lot of other times, like, you need to make sure that you're prepared, because it's not going to be often that you can get out of those kind of situations.
And I mean, thank you. That was a lot of information. The one thing that I just wanted to articulate and just to highlight is that the beautiful thing about many universities, and I'll speak specifically to the University of Calgary, is that there's so many resources to help you. So Kara mentioned if you fall sick the day before, that's what I like to call life. We all have a life and things happen. And so we have resources for that. So whether it's through student accessibility services, the wellness center, we have the student success center, there's all these different centers, leadership and student engagement, all these different professionals on campus, including myself and Stephanie, who are here to support you. University is not supposed to be a punitive or negative experience. Faculty don't expect you to know everything and anything when you enter your first year of university. That's what university is about, right? You're a fresh learner, you're a blank slate, and you're here to learn and to make mistakes along the way. And so don't be intimidated by these 300 classrooms. As Graham rightfully pointed out, as you progress through your career, you're going to get to know people on an individual level. Your TAs, your teaching assistants, your research assistants are really fantastic resources. And many times we're all just human navigating something together. I get really put off when people call me Dr. Cohen, because I think we're all in this together. We're all on the same page. I'm a learner just as much as you are. And I think we should navigate this university experience together. I have one more question, but I know there's something that was asked in terms of the transition from smaller class to bigger class. How do you reach the top? Great question, because these 3 students are at the top of their class, and I hate to put them on the spot. I hope you're not red-faced when I say this, but how do you reach the top of your class when you have such large classrooms? So I'll give you just a moment for that if you have any suggestions, and we don't have to do all 3, but if you have something concrete, I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I actually have quite a few thoughts on this.
This is when you have to be modest but honest, because you are at the top of your class.
I think the first being realizing how that changes because of the sample size, because you're moving from 30 to 300, and so you have to recognize the significance of it not necessarily being the case that, if you were number 1 in your class, that means different things. But if you're like in the top 10% of your class, that will mean something similar perhaps. And so it's that shift from being absolute to a bit more relative, looking at your percentile standing instead, perhaps. Also looking at like where you're coming from in terms of high school and being fair to yourself about like, okay, top of my class now, where I sit in university has no bearing, realistically. It's a reflection of where you are relatively. And the key point there is relative. Being able to sort of sit there, accept that, and be like, all right, that's not the important part anymore. The important part is looking at myself and how I feel I'm doing and how I want to be performing, and trying to focus on that a bit more. And then the last thing I want to harp on is there's a concept called relative deprivation, which is to say that if you are at the top of your class, it doesn't matter where you are, you'll tend to feel better about yourself. Realizing that that's a bit of a construct. The classic example is that people who attend, say, Stanford for their undergraduate degree versus people who attend the University of Calgary, we'll say. You might expect that Stanford's more selective. Everyone there will get their degree. They're all great. They're all going to graduate. It's not the case. If the same dropout rate, roughly, and it's because people are sensitive to the fact that they are in a certain relative standing. So you see these really successful people who get down on themselves because they don't think they're performing the way they should. And then they take that to heart, and it ends up basically running counter to everything else that set them up to get there in the first place. So yeah, it's taking that realization and saying, okay, sometimes you got to shut all of that out. I like Jessica mentioned, maybe starting some like red faces or whatever about the comment. I think it's really important to try and like take that mentality and try and channel it into just focusing on yourself and your own performance, as opposed to how you're doing relative to a class, because that can be something that can be detrimental to you. Yeah, that was long-winded, but Graham's thoughts on that issue.
Yeah.
Oh, I would add to that by saying that the definition of success is something that's super subjective. Like, it will completely, vary between individuals and between time frames. So for me in first year, success meant doing I wanted to have, X average in these courses that weren't part of my major. And to me, the courses that were in my faculty were a little bit more important to me, because I knew the professors and because it was the material that was directly related to what I wanted to do. And so to me, success in those classes meant different things. Overall, though, I think my strategy for success has drastically changed in 4 years. In first year, it was give 100% of effort in every single thing you do. Now that's great. That works for a little bit, but kind of as Kara was saying, we only have so much energy. And if you want to perform quite well and be successful at almost everything you do, you need to save your energy and know where to save it. So work smart. And so now I use something called the 70% method, which means that you invest like 70% of your energy into every task you do. For me, it's probably 80 because I like to achieve high things. I'm a high achiever and I push myself hard, but that's just me. But then, yeah, so looking at a task, I'll say, okay, I put 80% of my energy in this, do this, and then I move on to the next thing. Even though the task is not perfectly accomplished, I still see mistakes or little, imperfections. That's okay. That will get me to where I want to be, and I move on to the next thing. And I think that's really changed my way of studying and of moving through my degree.
I just wanted to build on what Leah said. So for me, in my first year of university, I had a 4.0 GPA, A+ in everything. And I was in biochemistry at the U of A. So I was in the big 100 to 300 level classes, and I was getting the best grades. And I had no idea. I thought that like everything, like I was stressed all the time. And I was like, how am I going to get this grade? It's going to be impossible. And then at the end, I got that, like I got my A+, and I was like, wow, that's so nice. But what wasn't so nice was every 2 or 3 weeks, I was like breaking down because of the stress I was putting on myself, because I needed to be perfect in everything. And I needed to be so smart, and I needed to be the best. And look at me, I'm the best. And that felt really good for my GPA. But it really was not sustainable in the long term. And I think right now, I was in sciences and biochem, and I think naturally I'm very good at sciences and I could get really high grades there. I switched to social work, and I'm still great at social work, but it's a lot more essay-based and writings-based, and I'm very good at multiple choice tests. So that was a transition to me, and that meant my grades weren't as good. And also, I wasn't trying to kill myself and cry over my studies. I wasn't actually suicidal, sorry. I mean, like I was breaking my back studying. That was a poor choice of words. But the thing is, in the long run, even though my GPA wasn't that straight A+ all the time, and I could deal with an A- here and there, my overall livelihood was better. And then also when we're looking at like in terms of like future references and things like that, I had more time to invest in working part-time, in doing research, in volunteering with student clubs and building more connections and those kind of things. And that is going to help me just as much as my GPA will. So I think that's really important. The other thing I'll say is I had a really good friend who in high school, he had a 98, I had a 94, and he was the top of his class in a small town, Alberta. And I wasn't top of my class in high school. I was good, but I wasn't top. And when we got to the same classes, he wasn't doing as well because he expected to be at the top. And I didn't expect that, but I think he expected it and he wasn't putting in as much effort. I'm not saying to put in as much effort as me, but just because you did well before, it doesn't mean you're going to keep doing well. What matters is that you actually keep trying. And I think the other thing that really matters is genuinely caring, because if you're just doing a class to do the bare minimum to get your grade, and there's times where it's like, well, why didn't I get that? I deserve that. I deserve that mark. I should have, like, it's not owed to you. And I think it's really important to be trying to learn and do things out of enjoyment and out of wanting to grow and put your dedication into things, because then you're actually going to see really good results, and you're going to see those papers and those exams that really show how well you're doing versus just doing them to get them done. It's going to be very different, and the professors are going to see that difference.
So thank you. 3 unique perspectives in terms of succeeding in your large classes. There are some really good questions coming in the chat, but I just want to take a little bit of a pause and invite Allison from the admissions team at the university to share with you a little bit more information about that process. And then we can come back to some of those specific questions that you have. So Allison, over to you.
Hi, I'm hoping I'm able to share my screen here. I hate to jump in and butt in on the really good discussion that's happening here. But I'm gonna go ahead and get through a couple of my pieces here that I'm hoping to go over. I know there have been a few questions about it. And then Jessica, if you wouldn't mind just giving me a nod if you can see my screen. Awesome. So yeah, thanks so much for being here and for giving me the avenue to chat with you a little bit. As mentioned, my name is Allison and I work in undergraduate recruitment in the recruitment and admissions office at the University of Calgary, of course, and just wanted to take the opportunity tonight. I know there's tons of really good discussion happening here, but to chat with you a little bit about some of our programs, a bit about admissions. I wanted to plug about how to apply for awards as well, because that's really important. And then just run through some important dates with you all. So the first slide I have here highlights, we have 14 world-class faculties here at UCalgary, but this highlights the 8 of them that have undergraduate degree programs. So the Faculty of Arts and the Faculty of Science being our largest faculties. The Haskayne School of Business, where you can earn a Bachelor of Commerce degree, the Schulich School of Engineering, Faculty of Kinesiology, the Workland School of Education, our Faculty of Nursing, and the Cummings School of Medicine, which is of course home to our MD program, but also home to our Bachelor of Health Sciences and our Bachelor of Community Rehabilitation program. The next 2 slides I have here break down in a little bit more detail the programs offered within each faculty. So at UCalgary, we have over 250 different degree combinations. So we truly feel like there is something for everyone. And even if there's something that you maybe think you don't want to have a career in, but you're still really interested in, you could look at adding it as a minor, as an example. So in the biggest orange font, you'll see what the faculty name is. And then in the slightly smaller orange font just below, you'll see what degrees are offered there. And then in the gray font, that's the areas of concentration that you can choose to concentrate in during your studies. So the Faculty of Arts being a good example, it's our largest faculty, offers a couple different degree programs. So our Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Communication and Media Studies, Bachelor of Fine Arts, Bachelor of Film Studies, Bachelor of Music. It also offers a Bachelor of Science. And then within all those, there's the different concentrations. The next slide here just has a few more of our programs that highlights Cummings School of Medicine, the Workland School of Education, Engineering, Kinesiology. And then just at the bottom right there, you'll see a list of some of the programs that require previous post-secondary before you can apply into them. So those are programs like law, offered through our Faculty of Law, medicine program, architecture, veterinary medicine, a few of those ones. And just a piece about admissions here. So I won't walk through the entire application process tonight. If you want more details on that, I can link my contact information in the chat, and I'm more than happy to connect with you one-on-one. But what's really important is once you've found your program of interest, you want to understand how you can be evaluated for admission into that program. So as alluded to on the slide here, each of our programs is going to be based on 5 faculty-specific subjects, and admission is competitive. So what we mean by that is it's based on the applicant pool who's applying that year. Some of our programs do have, that's always a big question that we see is my admission just based on grades, or are there other factors that are considered? Now, by and large, your admission is just based on your grades and the 5 faculty specific subjects, but there are a handful of our programs that also have additional admission requirements, and the examples of those are listed here. So the Bachelor of Health Science program has a supplementary essay. Our Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance or in Music. Of course, if you want to apply to those programs, you want to know that you can dance or that you can play music. So there is an audition requirement. And then for our Bachelor of Fine Arts in Visual Studies, there is a portfolio requirement. I'll pop a link in the chat too once I'm done presenting. It's a really, really handy widget online where you can go through and based on what your current education is, whatever curriculum you're studying, so maybe you're a current Alberta high school student, maybe you're visiting us internationally tonight, you can go ahead and plug in your program of interest and see some more details about the admission requirements and how to apply. And again, to the question that, oh, is admission only based on my grades? I wish it took into consideration other factors. I hear you there, and that's a great reason to apply for awards. I always like to make sure I plug this, and particularly with high achieving students, that once you apply for admission, which I know a few of you here tonight have already applied, is make sure that you apply for awards. And a big misconception about awards is you think that you need to have an offer of admission in order to apply, but that is not the case. In order to apply for awards, you just need to have applied for admission. We offer over $17 million annually, and over 40% of our incoming class receives some type of funding. So either a scholarship, a bursary, or an award. A big deadline coming up is December 1st, and that's the deadline to apply for our Prestige Awards. And if you have any questions about awards, I really want to encourage you to join us on November 26th. We'll be hosting a similar webinar to what we're doing here tonight, except it's going to be hosted by Joel May, who's our Assistant Registrar of Student Financial Services. And as a part of his portfolio, he oversees undergraduate awards. And so he's going to be putting on an awards workshop that will walk through how to apply for awards, what awards are out there. So both awards that are internal to the university and external awards, and give you some tips and tricks about applying. It's a really great workshop, and I can also put that link to register in the chat for those of you who are interested in attending. He often walks through applications from last year that he felt were some of the strongest to help give you a sense of what a competitive application looks like there. And finally, I just wanted to highlight some important deadlines, some of which have already passed, but you haven't missed out on anything, I can assure you of that. So I know a few of you already know, but for those of you that don't, our applications for admission opened on October 1st. So they are currently open and available for you to apply, and they will close on March 1st, 2021. We always encourage students to apply early, but you certainly have not missed any deadlines, and you haven't missed any deadlines to apply for awards either. So there is truly no time like the present, or at least in the next couple of weeks, to get your application for admission in and then look at applying for awards. Like I said, on December 1st, that is the deadline to apply for our Prestige Awards. So those are the really high value awards. And then shortly after that, on December 15th, that's when any supporting documents will need to be submitted with your award application. Getting into 2021, which is hard to believe because it feels like 2020 flew by. January 1st, application for residence opens. And as I said, March 1st, 2021 is the application deadline to apply for admission. Then sort of speeding along over to the right-hand side, August 1st, that is when any final documents are due. So official transcripts being the biggest example of that. And then August 1st, you get that in and you roll right into your first week of classes, first week of September. So that's all I had for the group tonight. I will stick around and I'll pop those links into the chat if there's any questions. But thanks so much for your attention, and I hope we can keep the really great conversation going here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you for being here and particularly articulating the importance of applying for awards. I just want to remind this group in particular that your skill set is really unique, and the hardest thing that you ever have to do is having the courage to put words on paper. So more detail, the better in your application. I just want to share that, but make sure you put in your application for those awards because those incoming awards can actually reap a big outcome when you apply to graduate and professional school in the future. So the time now is 6:58, and I respect your time. And so I just want to formally thank you all for joining us this evening. I appreciate some of you have other engagements that you may need to partake in. And so as Allison drops those last things in the chat, I just wanted to thank you and acknowledge you for being here this evening. We're gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask Leah, Graham, and Kara and Stephanie to stick around for a few minutes to see if we can address some of those other questions that were featured in the chat. But for those of you who need to move on, thank you so much. And Allison, do you want to give me the thumb up if you're okay with, did you put everything you needed to in the chat? Great, okay, so everything is good. So you have the knowledge that you need in case you need to leave here this evening. It's in our chat feature, but I think, like I said, I'm going to go back to some of the questions that we have, and if you need to drop off, it's totally acceptable.